Hi guys, it's Mew2King, and if you've been watching my Twitch recently in the past like 4 or 5 weeks, you'll know that I've been playing the Dark Souls series. I've never watched or played those games before. My first time ever playing it, starting with Dark Souls 1 blind run, started about 4 weeks ago or so. So I really enjoyed the series overall. I'm going to talk about Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Bloodborne also, since it's similar. And that's basically like the Souls series to me. I haven't done Sekiro yet. It's 1600 sub goal on my Twitch chat. If anyone's interested, that'll be the next game in line. But I'm going to be focused on my personal experiences, all the good, all the bad, my critiques, the things that I think were good, the things I think could have been better, and because I used to study game design, and I'm all about my honest opinions. I do want to say a disclaimer that I have not done a full magic run. I tried magic for like one day in Dark Souls 1, and I got bored of using the really broken soul arrows, and it just felt like the same campy thing over and over. And then I heard magic was a lot more interesting in 2 and 3, however I never really tried that. I may or may not in the future, I don't know yet. So this is mostly going to be from the perspective of somebody who played the games with a strength/dex build, so a quality strength dex build. That is the perspective I took in all of these games. That's how I preferred to fight. I didn't want to stay in a distance. I like getting up close, you know, having to learn the boss timings and then rolling and dodging and punishing. And I liked that type of combat more because it felt more satisfying and rewarding, and most people wanted to watch that. So I'm mostly going to be talking about from that perspective specifically. So I'm going to start with Dark Souls 1. So Dark Souls 1 is possibly the best in the series. I feel like it's between 1 and 3 for the best in the series overall, because it was here's the thing. Dark Souls 1 and 3 were consistently good throughout the game. Like, it had a strong beginning, a middle, and end. Whereas I felt Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne, I felt like, personally, I didn't like the beginning of 2 or the beginning of Bloodborne. It felt like you had to just 1v1 enemies a lot, and I didn't like the early stages environment as much. I felt Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne, I felt like they got better after you get through the first 30% of the game. Then it gets a lot better. Whereas Dark Souls 1 and 3 were consistent throughout, so I'll give more points to it for that. Dark Souls 1, in terms of gameplay and combat, I thought it was really new to me. Like, I didn't know about rolling yet. Like, at first, like the early bosses, like the gargoyle on like the bridge, like the 2 gargoyles were actually not that hard. But the guy on the first giant beast you fight on the bridge, like at first I was like, okay, well, I don't know how to avoid him, and then I learned, okay, you do the rolling. And then I learned that rolling has invincibility. Like, you run and press the O button on a PlayStation controller, but then when you release, you have to. It's when you release. It's not when you press the O button. This got confusing at first. It's not when you press the O button, but when you release the O button, that's when the frame 1 of the invincibility of the roll starts. And learning the frame data by talking to Twitch, I'm like, I just want to know the facts. Like, how is the frame data? And understanding that, okay, roll when you release O, it starts on frame 1 and lasts for a few frames. Learning that was the first learning curve. So the beginning of the game was extra difficult because I didn't understand what good combat was. But I also kind of made it fun. Yeah, I might have first game bias perspective, but Dark Souls 1, amazing layout of the game. Like, all the worlds connect. There's all these shortcuts. Like, you traverse, and you have a thing called a bonfire. And in the bonfire, basically, it's like a save point, but there's the risk reward because, like, you could go back. Like, if you rest at the bonfire, you get to you have a chance of leveling up or expending some points if you have enough points to level up. But then all the enemies reappear, so it's like, do I want to level up, like, or do I want to farm for my next level, or do I want to replenish the enemies or not? Like, you have to factor these things in. The worlds are really ingeniously connected. Like, you traverse. Okay, like at first it takes a while to get through, but then you unlock shortcuts in case you want to go back and get items or get to certain enemies. You have these really well-made shortcuts. It was extremely genius level design. If we're talking about a level design perspective, Dark Souls 1 definitely had the best level design in the entire series by far. One of the weaknesses to the game, which is spoilers for way later on, is something called poise. It gets a little broken later on. Poise is basically where, like if you have enough of it, you won't really get stunned very long from an enemy, or you can just straight up ignore the hit stun. Kind of like super armor in Smash, where you if let's say Bowser gets hit by a really weak jab attack and Bowser's attack continues to go through anyway, think of poise as like super armor. One of the weaknesses to Dark Souls 1 is poise gets really strong later game. So if you put on like Havel armor and level up your like endurance and like strength and just whatever it was that just increases poise and just gives like a poise build of armor and stuff, you can, like, enemies that are supposed to be really difficult get easier later on, specifically because of that. Also, some battles like 4 Kings, I heard, is like even easier because of that. So that gets easier later on. But overall, the game was extremely good. So a lot of the levels were really memorable. The worlds connected together. Like, you had a lot of different diverse bosses and a lot of different diverse levels. I think the level design, some of the best, if not the best in the series. DLC was also really good too. The first time I got to Anne Orlando, it was like, wow, this is so amazing. Graphics were nice. Overall, just consistently good throughout. When I started Dark Souls 1, I started as like the knight build, so it's like the average, like the generic average start that you'd like expect. You know, for strength, had good strength and defense, basically. With Dark Souls 2, I started, and Dark Souls 3, I started my game with a Deprived. Now, that was kind of a mistake because when you start in Dark Souls 2 with Deprived, all your stats are 6. So in order to, at some point, you need to farm to get good levels anyway, because otherwise you're just going to have to 1v1 enemies over and over, because if you try to fight them in a group, you're just going to die because your stats aren't good enough, even if you're beating them up. I heard that magic was amazing in Dark Souls 2, but like it was fun and good. Unfortunately, I didn't get to experience this because by the time I decided to use magic, it was like too late. So I heard good things about the magic, from being from many points of view, interesting and good, like a good balance of interesting and good. I did not do that. I found the beginning of the game to be really bad. So I felt the beginning levels, it was like a really generic, like they just throw enemies at you. The levels seem uninspired and boring. That was my first impression. As I played the game more, I found, wait, it actually gets a lot better. In addition to that, it's actually the biggest overall game. I spent the most hours on Dark Souls 2. I spent more hours on Dark Souls 2 than I did 1 or 3 of Bloodborne. So Dark Souls 2, if you can suffer through or get through the first like 30% of the game, I recommend not going Deprived. Don't start Deprived. It just makes the beginning real boring. Then I think it does get better. At the beginning, you have to start by like playing defensive and 1v1ing the enemies. It's really broken to get the enemies 1v1. I feel Dark Souls 2 did not have enough stamina early. Because you don't have enough stamina, you can't attack multiple enemies, because even if you try to, you're not going to be able to throw out your next attack, or you're not going to be able to roll away in time. So low stamina, I felt like stamina was like a big weakness on that. So, but the good thing, as I said, total amount of content, that can't be ignored. Like, yeah, the quality at the beginning wasn't the best, but you do get a lot of total content for the game. And I thought that was really, really nice. Also, the DLC of all the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne, I think the DLC of all the games are actually really good. I can't remember a single bad DLC I've played in Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, or Bloodborne. All of the DLC was very enjoyable. Unlike Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3 had a really broken roll. In Dark Souls 1, the rolling is like, it's good. It's not super overpowered, not underpowered. Dark Souls 2, rolling it's still real. Like, rolling is important in every game. It's like extremely important. In Dark Souls 2, rolling was like not as good as the other ones. Compared to 1 and 3. In 3, you can literally spam roll to get out of a situation. It's like, oh, an enemy's chasing me. You can literally just mash roll. So where Dark Souls 2, the rolling and stamina was not good enough in my opinion, in Dark Souls 3 is the opposite. It was a little too good. You could spam it to get out of situations, and I did some in Dark Souls 3. I started doing something called invasions, like where you can like invade other players. So like I did that just to try it out for fun. So I did it. It was really cool, and I was fighting some guys, and I was beating other players, and then right before I can get the finishing blow, what they do is they just run away and they just heal with Estus, and you heal so quickly with Estus. And in Dark Souls 1 and 2, Estus is where you have like a certain amount of heals, and you can drink it and you recover their health. But in Dark Souls 1 and 2, it's the worst in 2 actually. In 1, you stand in place and drink it. In 2, you stand in place and drink it, but it takes longer. And in 3, it's the opposite of 2. Like 1, it's in the middle, and 2, it's the least good, and 3, it's the most broken, because you can walk slow. Instead of standing in place, you can walk slowly while drinking it. But in addition to that, it also heals a lot and very quickly. It's so much that you can literally run away from a fight, drink Estus, and then now you're back to full health. And in Invasions specifically, I felt that made the invasions a little less fun, because if you're losing a fight, you know you can just run away and Estus, and it's like, it kind of defeats the purpose, to the point that there's literally like an honor code where it's like, oh, well, just do like a bow or something, so both players know not to do that and have an honorable fight. You had to do like a well-known online community honor code in order to get around that. So not the greatest system, but that's specifically for invasions. For the regular gameplay, it's kind of fine though. But yeah, rolling an Estus, extra broken in Dark Souls 3. However, Dark Souls 3, especially the DLC, has some of the best boss fights. A lot. I think in the entire series, if I had to say that Dark Souls 2 had the best total amount of like the highest number of total content, and that was the best feature of it, besides magic, from what I've heard, but didn't get to try. Dark Souls 1 has a good overall balanced gameplay, and a lot of the worlds connect together really well. Dark Souls 3 has a good balance of them all, and Dark Souls 3 has the best boss fights, in my opinion. Dark Souls 3 has really good boss fights, and as I said, especially the DLC. One particular boss in the entire series, I think a boss called Frida, actually took me 4 hours to beat. Most bosses I beat in the first few tries, like some first try, third try, fifth try, or something pretty fast. Frida took me twice as long as any other boss in the entire series, taking me up to 4 hours to beat. So that is like, at first it was like discouraging because you can't do it, but after you eventually win, it feels very satisfying. And there's a lot of good bosses in those games. I feel like they really put effort into the boss battles. So if you like boss battles, I think Dark Souls 3 has some of the best boss battles. Now, Bloodborne is a game that's similar to Dark Souls 1 and it's similar to the Dark Souls series, except in Bloodborne you actually don't have a shield. In Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, you could use shield. I didn't use it much because I prefer just attacking and spacing. I'm all about the attacking and spacing. In Bloodborne, it's a little different, where you don't get that. You don't get a shield, but you can use a gun for parrying. But parrying is pretty much better if you like know how the enemies are going to attack. A lot of people said parrying made the game easier. I didn't end up using it much because I felt I never needed to. It never felt like, wow, I need this to beat the game. But a lot of people, from what my Twitch chat said it made the game a lot easier. Like, just before the enemy hits you, you shoot him with a gun, and certain attacks and certain enemies you can parry, and then get a really hard punch in, something. The one thing about Bloodborne that I didn't notice, and I noticed is important, was that 30 frames per second. At first, I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But when you're turning the camera, it's like, oh, wow, you can actually notice the difference with like Dark Souls series, where it's like 60. The turning the camera seems fluid, and Bloodborne is like, kind of reminds me of like a Nintendo 64 game in terms of like how it doesn't seem as fluid when you're turning around the world. The Bloodborne did something really good and really bad. There was one thing I thought was really good, and one thing I thought was really bad about Bloodborne. So, to get the bad out of the way, I think the lack of Estus Flask in Bloodborne wasn't good because it would mean you had to farm Veals. Now, there are certain parts in the game where you can farm Veals to get like 70 at once, but that's like near the end of the game. Basically, Estus is like where you have a certain amount of heals every single time you die. So let's say you die and fail a boss, but you want to retry. But you just want to keep retrying the boss. So you have a certain number of Estus Flask, which is where you can like heal like half your life or 1/3 of your life or something. You can use these in boss fights, and you always get a certain amount. So you don't really need to do the boring process of farming enemies in order to just gather them up. In Bloodborne, you didn't get that, and I think the removal of Estus was not a good idea. Now, I get it, you don't want to call it Estus, but you could have still done a similar concept just calling it something else. I thought that was the bad part. Now, the good part of Bloodborne, which I think was a really good feature, was getting health back for aggression. When you're fighting a boss battle, a lot of the times, depending on the boss, how fast they are, sometimes you want to back up and backflip and just try to heal. Or you might want to roll a sidestep and try to attack them. Now, here's the thing. When a boss attacks you, you lose a certain number of health. Let's say you lose like 20% of your life bar from an enemy attacking you. An enemy attacks you and you lose like 25% of your life, let's just say. Now, you have like a 5-second window or something where that health, you could see like a red and a lighter red. Like there's a red bar, which is your life, and then there's like a lighter red bar, which is like the amount of health you have a chance of getting back. When you can choose, hey, do I want to try to fight this enemy and get a little bit of that health back? Like, let's say you hit the enemy back, and you might get like 5% of your health bar back. You can heal a bit by successfully fighting aggressively, but you only have a few seconds to do this, so you have to quickly make a decision. Do I want to gamble retreating and using one of my Veals to heal, or do I want to gamble going in, fighting him successfully, and healing? And obviously, if you're doing like a speedrun, you're not going to take damage anyway most of the time. But in a normal playthrough, you're obviously not going to have everything memorized, because why would you know that in advance? So you're encouraged to fight them and play aggressively. And the game actually rewards you extra by being aggressive. It encourages like going in and fighting, and then you attack them once, and then, okay, they're going to counterattack. Do I roll left or right now, or do I dodge, or what am I going to do? And there's stuff like that. And it gives a more balanced offense to defense gameplay, favoring aggression. And then the DLC had some really good boss fights. I didn't think any of them were particularly hard. I usually beat them in the first few tries. However, the last boss took me like over 2 hours. The final boss of the game took me over 2 hours. So that was a very satisfying boss fight. And I think the DLC was actually better than the main game. Like, it's one of those games that it starts kind of meh, and then it gets better, and then the DLC is even better. Dark Souls 1, best level design overall. Balanced game throughout. I definitely recommend it. Dark Souls 2, I do not recommend going in with the, I'd recommend not going in as Deprived. Dark Souls 3, if you do Deprived, you start with every stat at 10. But in Dark Souls 2, you start every stat at 6. So you pretty much have to just farm. So there's no point in doing it, because farming is not fun. It's not fun or skill-based. It's just like, well, you have to do this to get through. I recommend doing, like, try out everyone says recommend, like, everyone says to try out a magic build. I didn't try a magic build, but everyone says that magic in 2 and 3 is fun. But I heard magic in 3 was, like, bad, but fun. Whereas magic in 1 is broken, but basic, whereas 2, it's actually good and fun. The only combination, the highest combination of good plus fun for magic is 2. So if you're interested in doing a magic build, you might want to lean toward 2 a bit. If you like total content, you might want to lean toward 2. But if you don't like the beginning, then you might be turned away from the game. Dark Souls 3, it's kind of similar to 1, except Dark Souls 1 had a better level design where to connect the levels together, and Dark Souls 3 had the best boss fights. Otherwise, 1 and 3 are not too different. It's mostly the little situations I said. I didn't find them substantially different. Like, 1 and 3 kind of reminded me of each other, with obviously some differences. As for weapons, I personally like the one when I usually had 2 types of weapons. 1, I had a quick weapon for fighting bosses. Like in 2, I had the rapier where you can do like a quick poke and go to the side. Because on bosses, you're usually not going to hit them with stun. You usually want to get your damage, and you want to have not too much total time on your attack, and then be able to roll away from their attack. And then you decide left, right. You can do a back dodge, a left dodge, a right dodge, or a roll. And there's certain enemies you can parry. I just figured out I would just learn the roll because I didn't want to add too much to my plate. And Bloodborne, it favors an aggressive playstyle. So overall, I think all 4 games are worth playing. My 2 favorite was Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, but I think all 4 games are worth playing. And that's pretty much my review of the Dark Souls series and some of my opinions about the series throughout. Definitely a fun series, and I have no regrets over this past month. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any other game suggestions, or video suggestions, let me know there too. See you guys later.